Hey, welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. Excited to get back in the swing of things this year. And today I'm welcoming my friend Josh Taylor, who is a Storybrand guide and a professor here at the university and just a colleague and a friend of mine. Hi, Josh.
Good morning, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. A little bit under the weather, so I apologize if there's any sniffles, but I'm on the tail end of this cold.
Yeah, I think that's accepted. Everywhere else has freezing snow. We just have sniffles.
Yeah, we just have sniffles, and it's going to be like 50 degrees at the end of the day. It started out in the 20s and will end in the 50s.
Yeah, which is nice. We don't really have to, wait for something. Yeah.
Close everything down.
Now, why would we close everything down?
Because when Birmingham gets snow, we feel the effects of it for some reason down here, and so we have to close everything down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Even though we're 4 hours away.
Don't you like that there's like this random picture of a man behind us from?
It's right here.
We don't know who it is.
I think it's John Wesley.
So why don't
who that is?
if you know what theologian this is, let us know in the comments.
I think it's John Wesley, but this
might
one
win
might
something.
Wesley, so.
No, that's Martin Luther for sure. We have pictures of theologians in our podcast studio here at the University of Mobile.
Used to be the theological podcast studio.
So it is not anymore. Now it's whoever's studio wants to be. Anyway, let's just go ahead and jump into it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your story and Jesus.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of it. So yeah, I went to school here at the University of Mobile, graduated in 2006, got a master's from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and have been in full-time ministry for about almost 20 years, and most recently at Mars Hill Church here in Mobile as the executive pastor for the past about 11 years. And I've been on staff and faculty and staff at the University of Mobile since this past June. So right before you came on over here,
yeah.
I started here. And I am two roles here, the assistant vice president for culture and innovation, and then also the assistant professor for Christian ministry leadership here in the School of Christian Studies. And so I teach all the practical ministry classes.
Oh, okay.
So it's it's fun. We talk a lot about leadership, practical insights into leadership. I'm also a Storybrand guide. And what that means really is I have learned the Storybrand framework, have gone through the certification with Storybrand to help businesses, nonprofits, churches really clarify who they are. And the biggest part of it is I want to help them understand their purpose and help keep them focused on their purpose and the problems that they solve for people. And so I love doing that with churches, love doing it with nonprofits, and then businesses really allow me to be able to do it for churches because the businesses pay better.
Yeah.
And church communications, we probably know all about that.
Churches are cheap.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Unless we're buying MacBooks.
Right. Yeah, it's fine then. But the church communication budget, right? It's probably not.
We won't spend money at churches unless it has an iPad or a MacBook name in it.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna jump right into about church communications. This is your first time on. You were on the Ask Adam show, but that was different. So this is your first time jumping into like the world of just the church communications like family as a broad term. And so I just wanted to ask you, like, what does church communication mean to you? And then like, why is it important?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that, with working with different businesses and churches, one of the things that I've seen that churches are better at than businesses is communication. Because we have a message that needs to be communicated, but everything that we do is all about communicating well. We can't do our jobs well at the church if we're not communicating well, because ultimately we're trying to communicate the gospel,
right? And
we're trying to communicate who Christ is. And so church communications to me is really identifying and understanding your values, your culture, and then permeating that first within your team and your staff, and then having your team and your staff understand what those things are and communicating that into your congregation. So to me, it really starts with your team. And if your team is not communicating and understanding those things, then it's, the rest of the church is not going to get it. They're not going to understand it, because you're going to have people, silos really going in a whole bunch of different directions that are just confusing people.
So talking about people not getting it, sometimes the people who don't get it the most are the senior pastor.
Yeah.
If you're at a large church or even a small church, right? Like, and you're volunteering and you're trying to explain, like, we need a website, or we need a better website, or we need to clarify our branding, or we need to get out in the community more and do some type of, promotion, so how do you get senior leadership to buy into that vision?
I think part of it is having a plan and approaching it humbly. And leadership oftentimes, and I've served in leadership as the executive pastor. I served in a lot of roles that normally a senior pastor would serve in. And part of that comes with the territory of feeling sometimes like you're the guy that has to have all the answers. And so we need to be able to give the senior leadership the answers that they're looking for, because ultimately everything falls back on them. And so we need to understand that, be understanding of that, realize that we've been hired to do a job. And that really makes us the expert in it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we're not treated like the expert.
Right.
Other people think they're the expert in it.
Right.
And so that's where humility comes across, and coming in with a plan, coming in with a strategy, outlining that plan, but being very humble and gracious as we do that, bringing people along, not just, I had a really bad habit of just when people would put spaghetti on the wall is what we call it, I'd start giving them every reason why we couldn't do it. And so not being that guy, but listening to people. To me, the best way that you can get people to go with your ideas is to make them feel like it was their idea.
Yeah.
And so if you can figure out a way to do that.
Which is great, but then it's also hard.
It's hard to do. It takes time. It takes practice. And that's why I tell people, don't jump into a meeting without a plan.
It's also hard to give away the credit.
It is hard to give away the credit, and that's where humility and that comes in. And at the end of the day, we got to realize, why are we doing this? And
sure, yeah, it's not about us.
It's not about us, and that's super hard for us because we're human. We want to take the credit.
The gifts are not here.
No, and sometimes the church can be a very competitive world.
Yeah,
and church staff can be a very competitive world. So don't be that person. Be different than that. But I think having a plan and having a strategy to do that, and then bringing along people to where they feel like either it was their idea or they're jumping on board with this idea, because at the end of the day, the senior pastor and the senior leadership, it all falls on their shoulders, and they have to answer for it. And if they don't have answers, then they are the ones with egg on their face.
Yeah. Although I do think that the best bosses are the ones that give the credit away, even when necessarily you weren't the one who came up with the idea.
Absolutely. If you're in senior leadership and you're listening to this, give credit away all the time. Just give people credit all the time.
Yeah.
And follow people. Don't always be in the lead. Let other people lead. I think that's the mark of a good leader, is letting other people take the lead, especially when they have expertise that you don't have. And in leadership, sometimes we feel like we always have to be the expert, but there are other people that are better at things than we are.
So you were an executive pastor at church for 10 years, right?
Yeah, almost 11 years, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so a long time. So were there anything innovative ways that y'all communicated to your community or to your local body, and things that maybe you did a little differently that other churches might could learn from?
Yeah, so we didn't ever have a marketing budget, but we also had and I know church communications, they're like, pulling their hair out about that. But we didn't have a marketing team. I did most of the marketing, even as the executive pastor. And so I designed our website. I managed our website. I managed our databases we used while I was there. We went through 3 different database or church management software.
Okay, which ones?
We started with Church Community Builder.
Okay.
We switched to Fellowship One and ended on Planning Center.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, did you use Planning Center people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did use we used everything except giving.
Yeah.
For Planning Center, and that was because we already had a good giving platform set up.
Yeah.
And so I handle most of the communication, but we also had a restaurant that we ran out that really invited people into what we were doing during the week.
Okay, let's pause there, because let's talk about that. So is that okay? Can we talk about it just for a minute? Yeah. So Mars Hill is the church in Mobile that Josh was a pastor at, the executive pastor at.
Not related to the other Mars Hills around the country.
It's people of Mars Hill.
It's autonomous.
Googling things. Yeah, different. Actually, weren't y'all around before they were?
We were podcasting before Mark Driscoll or Rob Bell were podcasting.
Okay, yeah. So
we were at the top of the charts when people would search podcasts on iTunes.
And why he brings up Rob Bell is not just because of Mars Hill, but also their saying was "Love wins" for a long time.
It was, yeah.
Your tagline was "Love wins."
Our tagline was
before Rob Bell used it.
So then, maybe one day we'll talk about baggage and damage control too.
Yeah, how to deal with damage control, because they were both Mars Hill and also. But it was, I don't know, that's funny. But okay, so let's go back to the restaurant. So y'all have what's really unique about the church, the people of Mars Hill, is that they actually are a restaurant throughout the week. And that was something I thought was really interesting when I was at college here, just attending there, was that it's not just a church, it's also a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a way we wanted to be a church in the marketplace. And so to do that, we wanted to be a part of the marketplace. We had a building. When I was there, we actually transitioned from one building to another halfway through my tenure there. And we just kind of said, we've got this building and it sits empty all week long except on Wednesdays and Sundays. So how can we utilize it? The cafe was there before the church was there. We actually bought the assets about 2 years into it, because the man that started the restaurant decided to go a different direction and close it down, and sold us the assets at a really fair cost. And about a year after that, we reopened the cafe with the idea of all the profits would go back into the community. And when we say community, not the church community, but it would go, whether to feed the homeless, or we would adopt different parachurch ministries in the area and donate, if there were any profits, which in restaurant business, profits are hard to come by. But we really wanted it to be a place where people would just come and
hang out.
It would be Mars Hill is Areopagus in our Acts, in our New Testaments. It's Mars Hill is the Roman word for that. But Areopagus was the place where people would just come and talk about life and philosophy and share meals together and have conversations. And so that's what we wanted it to be, was a place where people would come. And eventually when they were there, they would start asking questions like, this doesn't feel like a normal restaurant. Like, people are different. People are kind. It just, they started asking questions, and they opened up an opportunity for us to let them know more about the church. But we didn't have like pamphlets and stuff that we would just, bombard people with church information. But eventually they would just start asking, and it opened up opportunities. So most of our marketing went into the cafe, and in turn, a lot of people that would visit the cafe eventually would start visiting the church.
Okay. Yeah. So any other innovative ways? I kind of cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to go down a restaurant path.
Yeah, so part of it, the most recently was right before I resigned at Mars Hill. I implemented a Storybrand strategy to it, and really it was for the first time. You said earlier, one of the things that often people don't get is the senior pastor doesn't quite understand it. And I would say it's often because the senior pastor has so many things going on his mind.
Yeah.
And not only that, but there's so many things that he wants to accomplish that he doesn't quite know how to communicate the one thing. Right. Like, what are we trying to do? And so really implementing this framework helped us figure out how we communicated about ourselves. And so we reformatted our website and some of our emails to really talk about what was important to us, and narrowing it down to that one or two things that we're just going to constantly harp on that make us unique in the community. Why are we different from the church down the street? And in Mobile, there's, you can go a mile radius and pass 7 or 8 different churches.
Oh yeah.
And so, what made us different, what made us unique, and what unique needs were we meeting in the community. So it helped us focus on that and narrow that down. And then we started talking to givers, because we didn't talk a lot about giving because we wanted to be a church for skeptics. And that's the number one thing that people, are skeptical about the church, is they're always asking for money.
Giving.
Yeah. And so we didn't talk a lot about giving, but one of the things that we did is we reformatted our emails, especially at the end of the year. When we talk about end of the year giving, we would share stories of people that have been impacted by donations that people have given from the church. But also we talked to everyone in the church, assuming that they were already giving. Rather than hitting them with a guilt trip, we're saying, because you gave, because you have been so generous this year, here are the stories that have been impacted because of your generosity. Mm-hmm. And so we wouldn't come up and say, guys, we're short this year, people aren't giving, only 10% of the church is giving, which was really a reality in most churches. We wouldn't bring all those statistics up to really guilt people into giving. Yeah. We would assume people are giving. And I think when people feel like, when you talk to them, yeah, I think people will rise to that level for the most part.
For sure.
And I think it was more effective for us. And so we just kind of changed, and we saw a huge jump in the way that people were interacting.
Just when you changed like the vocabulary.
When we changed that, and even when we talked about, one of the things that Adam, it was probably a year ago, he talked about how to do church announcements, and I actually implemented that into our church announcements, and then implemented our Storybrand framework into that, and started talking about our events differently as well, and why we were doing these different events. Yeah. And so if we're doing an event, say you've got a men's, like the Super Bowl thing's coming up, and our church, Mars Hill, is doing a thing for guys where they're all getting together to watch football and have food.
Like most churches are.
Yeah, most churches will be doing that. And so we start with, most guys really have a hard time connecting with people outside of work,
right,
or connecting with people in the church because they're so busy. They have so many things to do. And so we want to invite you to this event where you can just come, watch football, eat food, and connect with other guys in the church and just build some friendships.
Yeah.
So we started with a problem, and then we narrowed our announcements down to 2 or 3, and we saw a much better engagement in our events as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so
Ooh, that was a lot.
I know, right? Yeah, I think that's enough. No. Yeah. Okay, so why don't you tell me, do you know of any trends that you find that churches are getting the most value from in like participating?
Yeah, so I think again, it's figuring out, narrowing things down. I think one of the things that churches have gotten really bad at
we
over
have like
the last,
a wide breadth.
Yeah, we're trying to be everything to everybody,
and you can't.
You can't. You
said
really
this
can't.
Before,
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, if you're a church for everybody, you're a church for nobody.
Yeah,
because in your community, there is a church that will meet a need for everybody in your community. Right. You don't have to be the one that meets all of them. So figure out what you're really good at. Figure out the personality of your staff. And the needs that you guys can meet because of the creativity and the talents and the passions that are on your staff and in your church, and empower those people in your church to do that. And don't try to do everything. Just try to do a few things that God has called you to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So one more question and we'll just call it a day. All
okay.
Right. So is print dead?
No, I don't think so. It's my wife and I, since I resigned from Mars Hill back in May, we've been visiting other churches, and so we've been put on some different churches' mailing lists, and we get some mail outs from them. And there's a couple of events that we've attended simply because we got a mail out that let us know about it. I think it needs to be done well. It doesn't need to have a lot of text on it. It needs to have the right text on it, and it needs to be something that is engaging. Don't send me a big, huge pamphlet, and send me something that's relevant and it gets right to the point, but gives me the information that I need.
Sure. Okay. Do you have any resources that you'd recommend?
Yes. I really think if you can get a Creative Cloud subscription, you have
everything.
You have everything. And there's so many mobile apps, like Adobe Spark is great. I love Adobe Spark that you can design
There's
things
a new
on that.
Rush Premiere or whatever, so like new video editing on your iPhone.
So to me, the most valuable thing that I've been able to do is spend $50 a month. With student discount, you get it for $20
a month.
Or an educator's discount. So if you have that advantage, if you're a student, if you're in seminary or college or something, take advantage of that. It's $20 a month. Best investment that you can make is getting a Creative Cloud account and having access to all of those Adobe apps. Not all of them have a huge learning curve. Some of them do. But like Adobe Spark and stuff are great for social media posts. Canva is really great if you don't have a lot of design.
And it's free. Canva's free.
Yeah. So talk to Katie for nonprofits, because you can get it free. A lot of people say they can't afford it. If you're a church, you can get it for free. So make sure that you take
Canva, not Adobe.
Not Adobe. Not Adobe. It's expensive unless you have a student or educator discount.
Yeah.
But that's the best investment that I've been able to make as far as resources go.
Okay. So if people want to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
So I am on Instagram at joshtaylor.guide is my Instagram handle. And then I'm on Facebook as well. You can shoot me a friend request. Right now it's got a picture of my son in a Saints jersey playing the piano, and it will probably, and he's 3. And it will probably be up there for a long time because I'm still bitter, and so this is one of the ways that this is an outlet for me.
That's how you get over it.
I'm not even going to the Super Bowl party Sunday night.
Oh no, yeah, I know.
I'm still bitter about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go Saints. Who dat?
Yeah. So, and then Christy actually just popped up in the group and said, if you aren't getting a discount with Adobe, you can call them and ask them to get your monthly payment down, and they will probably bring it down to $32.99.
Yeah, and that is, you're right, Christy. That is the intro price. In fact, that's what I had it at for a long time, and then they did go up in their prices.
Yeah. Because
they added so many different ads. There's a lot of value to it. But yeah, I think you're right, Christy. So
just call and ask.
Yeah, do that.
That's literally the best thing you can do. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. It was fun hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the next time.
Yeah. See you next week.
See ya.